welcome to the Opposition Preview. So, hello everyone and welcome back to the Bleed Norwich YouTube channel. We're back for another Opposition Preview. And today, I have Middlesbrough fan Shaun with me. Shaun, how are you today, buddy?
I'm good, thank you, mate. You?
Yeah, very, very well. Looking forward to Saturday. And you guys have been very, very good in the league so far. I must say, obviously, you beat Swansea opening day of the season 1-0, and then you went away to Millwall and beat them 3-0, which no one saw coming. You must be impressed with the start that Rob Edwards has had.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be lying if I said the fan base wasn't divisive when Rob Edwards was taken on. There was plenty of people that were a little bit cautious about his sort of more recent record, shall we say. But it's a very different Middlesbrough that lineup this season. As you guys will remember, last season Carrick preferred to play. Well, he liked to monopolise the ball basically. And we spent a lot of time holding on to the ball, drawing teams on to us and hoping to pass through them. But towards the end of Carrick's tenure, to be honest, it got a little bit. There was quite a lot of apathy around. You know, we had the ball for long periods and didn't really penetrate or do anything with it. So yeah, Rob Edwards has come in. The obvious difference to start with has been the formation. So we're now very much 3-4-2-1. 3 centre backs, wing backs, couple of central midfielders, 2 10s behind the striker. Looks really good. We're a lot more difficult to beat, I would say. You know, we were a little bit soft-centred and we were criticised a lot for not having a bit of steel throughout the team. But there's definitely been an upturn in terms of game management, I would say.
Yeah, no, just touching on the formation, is the sort of 3-4-2-1 has been, it's now so heavily used by all Championship sides. Since we've got Liam Manning in, we play the exact same formation. Do you see that as maybe an issue in just us two teams cancelling each other out just based on formation and sort of the way we'll set up in games?
Yeah, possibly. It's very much on trend, isn't it, as you said, and we go through these cycles in football, don't we? 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3 and such like, and it does seem like this is the one that a lot of head coaches have fallen upon. I think what will be interesting from my point of view, or maybe even largely a Borough perspective, in our last game we played Hackney a little bit further forward, and we decided to play 2 more combative midfielders in the middle. We just didn't have the control in the game. They pressed us really hard in the first 20 minutes, and we suffered. And we hung in there and we were fighting our way, but we just didn't have that element of control. And in the second half, fair play to Rob Edwards. I mean, it was a long-running joke that Carrick couldn't make any changes till about 70 minutes. Whether we were 2-0 up or 2-0 down, he just wouldn't do it. And what we did, or what Rob Edwards rather did, he dropped Hackney back into a more familiar central role alongside Morris. And we brought on one of our new attacking players, Sonja Hansen. It made quite a difference in terms of attacking threads. So it'll be interesting to see whether Hackney drops and reverts back to his central spot, or whether indeed he does play in that sort of 8-10 sort of role.
Yeah, just touching on Hayden Hackney, I think he's sort of been the big talking point for Middlesbrough this summer. Obviously, you've had the one big outgoing so far, which is Rav van der Berg, obviously departing to FC Köln. But obviously, Hayden Hackney was ever so close to joining Ipswich Town. I'm very glad he didn't, as a Norwich fan. But I mean, you must be sort of very nervous coming in towards the end of the transfer window in terms of Hayden Hackney potentially leaving.
Yeah, I mean, just a word on the way he's conducted himself as well. I know that we're talking about handsomely paid footballers, and you know, it is a dream job for a lot of people. But when we've got the likes of what's going on at Newcastle with Alexander Isak and such like, Hayden Hackney has been the subject of speculation since the back end of last season, and I don't think many Borough fans could really fault him if a Premier League club came calling, and that may still happen. You know, towards the end of the window. I think for business up until now, I think most fans would be happy. The biggest sort of outgoing has been Rav van den Berg, which, okay, I think he'll go on to be a very, very good player, but we're well stocked in that area. And I think now is the question of if Finn Azaz goes to Southampton, just in the press conference there saying he's available for selection, they've rejected the first bid. If he goes, it's all well and good as fans sort of saying, well, if Azaz goes, we don't have to sell Hackney. But if we get a scenario come the end of the window where a Man United comes in with a very good offer, it's going to be very difficult for the club and indeed the player to turn that down. So fingers crossed we don't lose two more of our creative players.
No, absolutely. I think that's obviously the key point of coming into at the end of the transfer window for all sort of championship clubs that are sort of above the mid-table mark, pushing into the playoffs. Obviously, with Middlesbrough and Norwich are sort of in a very similar area there. We're desperately trying to keep hold of the likes of Josh Sargent, yourselves. You're trying to keep hold of Hayden Hackney, Finn Azaz. It's a horrible time to be a championship football fan.
It's hard, isn't it? Because those clubs that come down get the parachute payment and they sort of then proceed to pick off the assets of all those around them, and it's hard. I understand the process of the parachute payments, of course I do. But as you've already said, Ipswich have come knocking, Southampton are now coming knocking, and they're an attractive proposition whether we like it or not, because they're heavily tipped to go back up, aren't they?
And of course, that's this is as painful as it is hearing that. That is the truth. But obviously, we've spoken about potential outgoings of you guys, but even the income is, like you say, your transfer business has been very good. You mentioned Sonja Hansen, who I'm a big fan of. I've watched a lot of the Eredivisie last season, and at Nijmegen, he was a very, very talented footballer. Callum Britton from Blackburn, an established championship player. Abdoulaye Kante from Troyes, can't say I know loads about him, but and then Alfie Jones from Hull, who I think is a top replacement for Rav van der Berg as well. So I think your business, and then the big one I think that you've done recently, Severa Naipan is his name, from Man City on loan. A bit of a FM wonder kid is what I hear, but he's valued at about £13 million at 18 years old. That's a hell of a coup, isn't it?
He looks a great young prospect, doesn't it? It's very difficult as fans. You know yourself. You try and keep your feet on the ground, but we're sort of smothered with these YouTube clips and montages, and he really does look an exciting player, especially if you were to put him either alongside or even instead of, dare I say, a Hayden Hackney. It's quite mouthwatering the sort of link-ups that you can see developing there. So I think we've done really good business. It would just be unfortunate and almost typical Borough to undo that if we were to let two big players go at the same time, because then albeit we're only 2 games in, we can start to, actually going from a sort of mid-table-ish team, we would have real aspirations if we were to hold on to our better players, I think.
Yeah, no, of course. That's it. That's it. Because obviously, sort of the ambitions for the season sort of change based on if you keep Azaz and Hackney to whether you lose Azaz and Hackney. They're both obviously, like you say, very key players to Middlesbrough. There was one player when I watched the Millwall game that sort of really stood out for me. It was your left wing back Silvera, and I read some interesting things on him because he's been a Middlesbrough player for a while, but just he's been on different loan spells. He was at Blackpool, I believe, last season. Never really broke into the first team, and didn't even do well at Blackpool. And somehow he's become quite the player at Middlesbrough.
Well, it's quite a story, isn't it? As you said, he arrived and he was one of the sort of players we brought in, a development player, if you like. I don't really like that phrase, but a lot of players are brought in to develop and possibly for resale after. Sometimes it doesn't work, and a lot of fans thought that Silvera would be one of those players where it just didn't quite come off. He was a little bit in and out of the side in the first season under Carrick. And then, as you said there, basically unsuccessful loan spell at Portsmouth and Blackpool. So who'd have thought he'd come back, and basically it's ended up at the taking his chances. We need a left wing back, there's no hiding from that. Neto Borges can play there, although he's probably better suited to play in the left side of a centre-back three. So he's taken his chance in pre-season, and it's quite nice really that in all of the stuff going on in the transfer market at the moment, he's a player that went straight to Rob Edwards and said, I know I've not played under you before, but I really want to make it work here. I want to work hard and I want to show you what I've got, sort of thing. He's a very attacking wing back because primarily he's a winger, I would say. But yeah, he's taken his chance and he's worked hard, and it's actually his shirt to lose now, because even if we bring somebody in, I'd say on Silvera's form, he'd be disappointed if he was dropped now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, he's been very impressive in the opening couple of games this season, and like you say, definitely his shirt to lose, even if you bring someone in. But just going to touch on sort of a Norwich basis now. What player are you sort of sort of, I guess, scared of facing up against? Because there are a few attacking talents in the Norwich side.
Absolutely. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but the Conway missed penalty last season, and then the subsequent sort of collapse, if you can call it that. Obviously, from a Borough point of view, from a Norwich point of view, as you said, there's some great attacking options. And Sargent, I think, is the one. He's very prolific and he's so dangerous. But you guys have always produced really good attacking outlets, Borgia signs and the like as well. So we know that it'll be very difficult to get another clean sheet on the board. So I think, dare I say, I'd love a win, but I think a point away from home would represent a good first 3 games.
Yeah, I think a lot of Norwich fans are sort of expecting a point as well, and would very much be happy with that, especially how you've started the league season. I will just sort of briefly touch on the cup, because I think you guys had probably the shock of the round, other than Ipswich losing to Bromley. It was the Doncaster game, wasn't it? You guys lost 4-0. Yeah. Was there any sort of cause for concern, or was it just sort of just one of those fluke losses?
Big media fallout. You know what the world of social media is like now, and the squad was called into question, and the ownership, and why aren't we buying players quicker? And there was a real sort of meltdown, understandably, at the manner in which we capitulated, really. But then it's very odd. Like last season, we did something similar. We beat Leeds in the EFL Cup, and then subsequently got hammered by Stoke 5-0, 5-1.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
5-1, yeah. So it was pretty awful, but I think the caveat with it this time round, it's a new system. Rob Edwards is trying to get his players into a very, very different mindset of playing. Maybe direct is the wrong word. I think there's a bit more tempo about us, and a bit more intensity. We don't press as much from the front foot as I think a lot of fans thought we would, but you've got to be careful with that. A long old season in the Championship, and I think you've got to press at the right times. But it was a second string, and I'm aware that Doncaster put 11 changes out as well. But we had a lot of young lads and a lot of players who really didn't understand the system we were playing too well. A few young players like Law McCabe and George McCormick, rabbit in the headlights kind of thing. There was a few seasoned pros in that Donny lineup, and we got a lesson, thankfully. It obviously didn't linger in the dressing room too much, and I'm glad. And I think credit to the coaching staff for getting them refocused and getting that big away win.
No, of course. And obviously going into to Saturday's game now, are there any sort of injury concerns within the Middlesbrough camp or anything? Because they've started to hit the Norwich camp already. So
no, we've got 3 not long termers, but ones that are frequently injured. Riley McGree is one of them that tends to infuriate a lot of Borough fans because he's a very good technical player, but he really struggles to manage his injuries and stay fit for long periods. Darrell Lenihan came back and unfortunately had got another niggle, so he'll be out. We do miss leadership like that, but we've got lots of good centre-backs to cover. As you touched on there, Alfie Jones has stepped in really well. I think speaking to a few of the Hull fans, he wasn't necessarily the most robust or toughest, but in a 3, he's quite good on the ball, and he's started really well for us. The only other one that's out as well is Alex Bangura, who again was out for the majority of last season. So no big surprises on that front, but I don't think there's anyone else that's touch and go. Like I said, I've heard that Azaz is available, whether he starts or not. He's on the way back from injury, and he came off the bench to get an assist in the last game. So I thought without all this sort of transfer merry-go-round, he probably would have started, whether he does or not, whether he minds in it, because I've heard that he does want the move. That will be interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just sort of very much a waiting game, seeing what that starting 11 is going to look like. And it's the same with Norwich coming into the transfer window. Although I've not heard anything on Sargent or Nunes, you never know what's going to pop up in sort of the next couple of days. Luckily with Nunes, he has, well, I guess lucky in terms of the transfer sense, Nunes got injured on Saturday against Portsmouth, which is going to keep him out for a couple of weeks now. So hopefully that steers clubs away from him. But the whole Josh Sargent saga has been a very, very strange one. It's similar to Hayden Hackney with Ipswich, obviously.
Yeah.
it almost seemed done, but it was Hayden Hackney's decision to say no. We had the same with Josh Sargent to Wolfsburg. He went over there, but he said no. And yeah, currently Hackney's still a Middlesbrough player and Sargent's still a Norwich player. And two sides I do think will be there or thereabouts if they keep hold of their key players in this transfer window.
There's plenty of parallels, isn't there, between the clubs? I think expectation-wise as well. I think most fans hope rather than expect us to be around that sort of 6th to 8th place, but it's a very competitive league, especially when those that have come up are really strong as well.
Yeah, I think this is sort of the first time we've really seen the Championship where we've had teams that have come up with serious loads of money. Even Charlton are spending more than some of the bottom half Championship sides, and then we obviously the three sides that have come down are all very, very strong in their own right as well. And it's like you say, a very competitive league this year.
I mean, Birmingham were like second favourites, weren't they? Third favourites.
I think it's ridiculous. But we'll run into to finish off here. We'll run into the score predictions. What is your score prediction going into Saturday's game?
I'm going to go for an entertaining 2-2.
2-2. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, just to be a bit realistic and not get ahead of myself here. We've only won 2 games so far this season in all competitions. Don't want to go too heavy. But Shaun, thank you very much for coming on the Bleed Norwich YouTube channel today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
No problem, mate.